Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of our engine build series. This is where it all comes together. We actually just got done with part 1. If you have not seen part 1, make sure you check that out. It's going to be right up here up top. That's where we do the entire bottom end of our engine. We've also finished our cylinder head build. That was a little while ago, where we did the valve grinding, really lapped those valves, valve seals, those upgraded camshafts we got. All that is in another video. I'll make sure to drop that up here for you guys so we can get caught up on the top end. And now we just finished the bottom end, and now this is where all of it comes together. Bottom end, top end are going to come together, and all the awesome accessories and pieces are going to go on it. I'm really excited to see these two pieces come together. It's been a long time coming, and a lot has been waiting on it. So I'm very excited. I'm tired of talking. Let's jump into it and let's get started. Alright, so what I've got in front of me here is actually the pulleys that we use for our engine, our crankshaft pulley. This is a little different than normal because it's got the extra groove for our air conditioning system that this car has, which is pretty nice. Our crankshaft sprocket and that retaining nut. We've got our camshaft, exhaust and intake sprockets here, and our auxiliary shaft. This is what came on the car stock. It's really ugly. It's brown. More 80s than we can handle, and you can tell that someone in the past put this on a little too tight because it's all rubbed out here. The plastic is flaking off there, so that's not very good. And the cast is just really heavy, and this especially is super heavy, and I don't really like it. I think it's kind of too vintage for us, and I think with a build like this we really have to go all out. So we're gonna set all this aside. We're not going to use all that. We'll reuse our crank sprocket. But, are you ready for it? We're going to be using, oh yeah, all nice, all new pulleys. We've got our water, our thermostat housing, our pointers that go on top, our timing pointers. We've even got a nice new pulley for our water pump, and yeah, this is what I'm talking about. We even have ones that look just like this for our cylinder head, for our exhaust and our intake. This is going to be so much better than that. I mean, that's like a no-brainer. We're definitely going to go with this. And of course, as always, you can get your own set from Vic Autosports. I'll put a link in the description down below. I liked the red, but they also have blue, black, gray, and the red if you like the red also. But they sell all these pieces. They're all available in stock. You can even give them a call to make sure it fits your application just fine, which of course it will. But they're always there to help you out on the phone as well. So I'm really excited to get all these on there. But before we can even get this stuff on our bottom end, we need to get our head joined to our bottom half, put our head gasket on, all of our head bolts, all that good stuff. But I wanted to show these first. This is where we're headed, and it's gonna look so good when it's on the engine. So let's stop fantasizing. Let's get it on there. All right. So what we're gonna want to do is use our alignment pins for our head gasket. The holes just slide over them just like this, and it helps locate our head gasket. So when we go to put our cylinder head on, it all stays straight. Now we can start bolting it down. Alright, so we're putting our cylinder head on, and you want to make sure that your head gasket is on those pins, those locating pins. So otherwise you're going to be chasing it around like me. Alright, once we've got our head attached, we're just going to feed in our head bolts. And when we do that, we'll take our electric ratchet. And all we're going to do is snug them up. We're going to get them close. We're not going to get them tight. We're just going to get it close. But of course, that's after we start to thread them in manually. That way we don't cross-thread anything, because that would not be very good. Alright, hopefully that light doesn't wash you guys out. But we're starting them all by hand. I want to make sure we're all set there before we start putting anything electric on it. Alright, now all we're going to do is get them close. We're not going to, as soon as we feel any sort of pressure, we're going to stop. just like that. I'm going to do it all for all of them. Alright, so we're about to torque our cylinder heads down, and hopefully you guys can see this without it getting washed out. But this picture here on the top, maybe you can see it now, you'll see how to torque them in this order. So if you guys are torquing your head down, you can pause this video right here. And see how to do that pattern. But this is a pattern we're going to be doing. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. We're going to torque that. You do it in 2 stages. The first one's going to be 29 foot-pounds, and the second round is going to be the final torque of 61 foot-pounds. So let's get this torqued on. Okay, now we're going to bump it up to 61, which is our final torque setting. And we're going to repeat the pattern. Okay, these are all torqued to 61 foot-pounds. So what I'm going to do is go through each one at a time, just to make sure that I didn't miss any. I don't think I did, but it's always good to play safe. And then we'll be able to move on to adding stuff to it, and that's going to be the exciting part. Alright, so the first thing we're going to install is our crank pulley. We see we've got our key installed. We also need to install our gear. Well, you know what? Before we install this, that's pretty gross. Let's clean it up and then try again. Alright, that's better. We also took a paint pen and we marked our top, our timey mark on there. Slides on nice and easy, followed by our crank pulley. That's better. Oh man, this already looks so good. I'm so excited to get this on there. Put our nut on. Now we're not going to be torquing this right now. This is a really high torque rating on this bolt, in the hundreds. I don't want to say off the top of my head because I'm not 100% sure what it is, and I have to look it up. But that is pretty high, so it'll be better to torque it when it's in the car, because we can put the transmission in gear, put the brake on, all that good stuff, to really get in on that and use some of the car to help us out with that. So we're going to wait to torque that down. The next thing we're going to install is our auxiliary shaft pulley. Now in part 1 we line this up to be in time, so we want to make sure we don't knock it out of position. That way we can keep our time. Helps if I put it on correctly. Alright, we'll also torque this one, but this one is rated at 87 foot-pounds for auxiliary shaft torque setting. And we'll finally have to put on our water pump pulley. I have those. Oh man, that looks so good. Look how awesome that is. The black and the silver and the red just really come together, and it's going to look really good in our black engine bay. I'm really happy with that. So while we're waiting for a couple more things, we can start to install our water thermostat housing up on top and get that in there with our new gasket and all that good stuff. And then we can put our timing marker on top also. These end up pointing at the dots that are on top here to make sure that you are in time. Now before we installed our head, we made sure we were in time, so that's all set. Now we're going to install these bolts for our water pump pulley. And these actually have a torque spec. I don't remember off the top of my head. I think it's like 17 foot-pounds or something like that for the pulley. So now we're ready to put our timing belt on. The best way to do this is start at the bottom and work your way up. So we're going to put the belt around the crank pulley on the bottom. A little tight where the timing marker is. There we go. Just going to wrap that around the crank. This goes up here. And this is where it comes across like this. So this is what part of why we left our tensioner loose. We'll probably need to crack that nut, that we can get it to slide over a little bit more, and then we'll be able to take up the space, but we're not meeting it here. We're also going to need to chase it around the crank, because I can already see where we're not quite right. We're not sitting in there. So it's just a matter of patience and slowly working your way in there and making sure you're sitting in the grooves and make sure you're in time. That meaning that your auxiliary shaft is pointing at this bolt, your crankshaft is pointing at your timing marks, top dead center, and then your two pulleys at the top are pointing in at what should be a pointer right here. We're just waiting on the hardware to arrive for that so we can install it for ourselves. Up and over, like that. And we're almost there. So we're going to break this one loose and we'll be able to snake it over and our timing belt will be on. Alright, this is the real moment of truth. We've got the timing belt on, everything's nice lined up on the top. Now the one thing we're going to do is spin this over 2 complete cycles and go really, really slow. We want to make sure nothing is hitting or anything like that. So here we go. Nice and slow. Okay, so those are a couple of rotations. One thing I'm noticing is I'm sure I need to retorque these. These are not officially fully torqued, so these aren't seated completely. But what I'm seeing is that the belt is coming into the auxiliary shaft and then back up, and as it comes back around, it bows back out. So I think the belt just needs to be adjusted on there you know, moved over a little bit. Not a big deal, because I can see it's starting to float to the back side here, and it's lined up pretty close to the back on here. So it just needs to be recentered, and I'm sure having all of these completely torqued will really help us out. It could also need to scoot back, which is what it looks like on the crank sprocket on the back, and that'll help us out too. So it's little stuff like that, we're getting there, but the timing belt is on, and we did a complete rotations without any issues. If we want to be really thorough, we can go through and look at all the valves as we're spinning it to make sure everything is clear. But we haven't run into any issues, and so I think we're doing pretty good as far as like any issues. I mean, really bad timing issues or anything like that. I've done it before, long story. So I'm definitely making sure not to do that this time. But it felt good. There's no spark plugs in it, so we'll make sure to put some lubricant in there and then plug all the holes that are exposed. We're waiting on a couple pieces of hardware to finish off the thermostat. I have a thermostat, it's a 160-degree thermostat, but I'm waiting for some screws to come in. That way I can install the final part of this here on the front and get myself some spark plugs. But this is a huge moment. This is a great looking engine now that it's all put together. I'm really happy with it, and man, looks so much better with these pulleys on there, all complete.